The racist pseudoscience of racial biology. What if everything you were taught about race had a hidden agenda? What if the so-called science behind racial superiority wasn't science at all, but a weaponized myth? Welcome to My Blackness 100, where we uncover uncomfortable truths and rewrite the narrative with evidence. Today, we're diving into one of the most disturbing and hidden chapters in scientific history, racial biology. Stay with us, because what modern genetics reveals might completely rewrite what you thought you knew about race. Before we dive deep, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear the truth, and turn on notifications so you never miss a drop of knowledge. And when this video ends, don't stop here. Explore more of the My Blackness 100 channel for powerful stories that challenge myths, expose lies, and celebrate Black brilliance. 1. The birth of racial biology, a weaponized science. In the 18th and 19th centuries, a pseudoscience emerged that would forever shape how race was perceived. Known as racial biology, it was a field designed to categorize humans into hierarchical racial types. Scientists like Carl Linnaeus and Johann Friedrich Blumenbach classified people based on skull shapes, skin color, and arbitrary features, claiming Europeans were superior. These classifications weren't harmless. They justified slavery, colonization, and genocide. The belief that one race was biologically superior became embedded in law, education, and policy. But beneath the surface, this wasn't real science. It was a social agenda disguised in scientific language. It aimed to elevate whiteness and dehumanize others. The power of racial biology didn't come from its truth. It came from who endorsed it. Governments, universities, and religious institutions used it to legitimize systems of oppression. This was the beginning of race science as a political tool, not a scientific discovery. Even today, echoes of the pseudoscience can be found in academic and political discourse. Some ideologues still cite discredited theories to back racist ideologies, showing how deeply these historical lies are embedded in modern systems. The past still breathes through these remnants. 2. Eugenics, the dark legacy of racial hierarchy. By the late 19th century, racial biology evolved into something even darker: eugenics. Proponents like Francis Galton, a cousin of Charles Darwin, pushed for the idea of improving the human race through selective breeding. They believed that poverty, criminality, and mental illness were inherited and disproportionately linked to non-white people. Eugenics programs led to forced sterilizations, marriage restrictions, and immigration bans. In the US, over 60,000 people were sterilized without consent. These ideas influenced Nazi Germany's racial laws, laying the groundwork for the Holocaust. What's terrifying is how mainstream these views became. Influential figures, from politicians to scientists, openly supported them. Universities taught eugenics as fact. It was marketed as progress. In reality, it was a campaign of scientific terror against the marginalized. The public's acceptance of eugenics reveals how easily fear and prejudice can be masked as logic and reform. Once wrapped in the language of improvement and purity, these ideas gained legitimacy, showing how dangerous unchecked pseudoscience can become when embraced by institutions. 3. The IQ, obsession, and the bell curve controversy. In the 20th century, the pseudoscience of race got a makeover through IQ testing. Psychologists like Lewis Terman and later Charles Murray used intelligence tests to argue that Black people were genetically inferior. Their work, including the infamous book The Bell Curve, suggested that intelligence was fixed, inherited, and racially biased. But here's what they didn't tell you. IQ tests were culturally loaded, often based on white, Western experiences. They measured exposure, not innate ability. When researchers controlled for environment, poverty, and access to education, the so-called racial IQ gap vanished. The IQ argument wasn't just flawed, it was dangerous. It fueled racist policies in housing, education, and employment. It reinforced the idea that Black underachievement was genetic rather than systemic. And it continues to show up in debates about affirmative action and public funding. These tests became a quiet weapon, data used to restrict access, deny potential, and reduce human beings to numbers. It wasn't about intelligence, it was about gatekeeping. The moment intelligence was racialized, It became a tool of social engineering, not education. 4. The role of anthropology and human zoos. Anthropology, a field meant to study human diversity, was once a major enabler of racial science. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, anthropologists collected skulls, measured body parts, and published studies proving white supremacy. Museums displayed African and indigenous people as primitive specimens. Even worse were human zoos, exhibits where real people from Africa, Asia, and the Americas were caged and displayed in European cities for entertainment. These grotesque spectacles were designed to show the evolutionary ladder, with white Europeans on top. Figures like Oda Benga, a Congolese man displayed in the Bronx Zoo, became symbols of this horrific practice. The message was clear: non-white people were less evolved, less human. This spectacle wasn't fringe, it was mainstream entertainment. People paid to gawk, not realizing they were participating in one of history's most brutal dehumanizations. These events helped mold generations to accept racism. 5. Nazi racial science and the ultimate horror. No discussion of racial biology is complete without confronting Nazi Germany. Hitler's regime took race science to its logical conclusion: extermination. Nazi scientists classified Jews, Roma, and Africans as subhuman and conducted brutal experiments to prove their theories. The Holocaust was not just a political act, it was a scientific one, grounded in decades of racial biology. Universities, laboratories, and hospitals all played roles in the genocide. After World War II, the world was forced to confront the horrors of race science. The Nuremberg trials exposed the grotesque experiments and the complicity of scientists. For the first time, the world began questioning the very foundation of racial biology. But shockingly, many Nazi scientists were quietly absorbed into post-war research institutions, especially in the US under Operation Paperclip. The science didn't vanish. It was rebranded, renamed, and hidden within new fields, keeping its toxic roots alive. 6. The rise of modern genetics. Cracking the code. Enter the 21st century. As the Human Genome Project unfolded, it revealed a groundbreaking truth. Humans are 99.9% genetically identical. Race, as a biological concept, holds no genetic foundation. There is more variation within so-called racial groups than between them. In fact, two people from different parts of Africa may be more genetically different than a European and an East Asian. This destroys the very idea of distinct racial categories based on biology. Scientists like Dr. Sarah Tishkoff and Dr. Rick Kittles have used genetic mapping to show the rich, complex diversity within African populations, disproving the myth that Africa is genetically homogeneous. This kind of science is liberating. It shifts focus from difference to interconnectedness, giving us the tools to dismantle racist narratives with evidence. It also restores dignity to people who've been pathologized by centuries of false science. 7. Debunking the myth of pure races. The idea of racial purity has been a cornerstone of white supremacist ideology. But genetic science shatters this myth. All humans share common ancestry in Africa. Migration, interbreeding, and adaptation created the mosaic of physical traits we see today. No population is pure. We are all mixtures. Even the concept of blood quantum, used to discriminate against Black and Indigenous people, has no scientific basis. Mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome studies have shown that humans have always been interconnected. The idea of isolated, untouched races is a fantasy created to justify exclusion and power. This truth dismantles not just pseudoscience, but also cultural elitism. By acknowledging our mixed origins, we disrupt nationalist narratives built on false pride and expose the vulnerability of ideologies that rely on racial isolation. 8. From pseudoscience to empowerment. Why truth matters. So, why does debunking racial biology matter? Because lies about race still influence our world. From police brutality to educational disparities, the remnants of race science seep into every corner of society. When we expose these lies, we dismantle systems built on them. We shift the narrative from inferiority to excellence, from division to unity, and we reclaim the dignity stolen by centuries of scientific deception. the fight isn't over. Pseudoscience still finds its way into policy and perception. But armed with modern genetics and historical truth, we can resist, educate, and rebuild. Empowerment begins with education. By rewriting the story of race through facts, we give future generations the tools to recognize injustice and dismantle it. This is how we transform trauma into triumph. Hey, if this episode challenged what you thought you knew, that's the point. At MyBlackness100, we confront the lies that shaped our world and reclaim the power of truth. So if you believe in dismantling myths, empowering minds, and rewriting history with facts, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a drop of truth. Like this video if it opened your eyes. Share it with someone still caught in the web of pseudoscience. And in the comments, let us know, what part of this story hit you hardest? This isn't just content, it's a movement. And your voice, your action, your truth, they all matter here. Welcome to MyBlackness100, where knowledge is power and the future is unapologetically black.